Thank you very much. Thank you all for your testimony. Is there somebody in the administration that's in charge of selling this to the American people?
Agree with the conclusions of that report, but secondly, before I ask you questions about what legislation you're recommending following your report, I'm interested as to your reaction to what legislation we have recently adopted, what recommendations we have recently made, to see where that falls short. And then I'm going to ask you about what additional legislation, if any. But first of all, are you familiar with those recommendations? If so, do you agree with those recommendations that I've just read?
Senator, I am familiar with that report. The Commission is familiar with the report. I want to say our own report, you in fact passed the ball along, and further investigations have been going more and more deeply into it. We noted that our private security in Afghanistan appears to be a major source of payoffs to the Taliban. Our report has the first official statement that it's the second largest source of money to the Taliban.
After drugs.
After drugs, that's right.
That's similar to our finding, but here's what followed our report. The Department of Defense established a number of task forces, directed that remedial action be taken. And so the question is, have those task forces been effective? Are they operative? General Petraeus himself told me about the importance of this issue to him. Now, he's kind of the most recent father of a counterinsurgency strategy. And I just am wondering, are you familiar with those task forces? Are they effective? Are they operative?
Well, one of them, according to public sources, came up with a figure of $360 million being paid to the Taliban, so they are at least grappling with the issue.
Did you have a chance to interview those folks?
I interviewed a group of analysts who sort of work for them or with them, and there is one useful thing that's being done, although it's not considered to be enough to get control of the problem. There's a type of vetting using intelligence information, which is at least going to keep the bad guys from being direct contractors to us. But that's obviously only a portion of the problem.
What to do about President Karzai? I know it's the question on all of your minds. Isn't he making success more problematic? And he surely is. There's been an understandable outpouring of dismay in our country at his various offensive recent and not so recent comments, such as a recent speech in which he said Taliban attacks are, quote, in the service of foreigners not withdrawing from Afghanistan, close quote. Some say Karzai is motivated by domestic politics, that he's acting shrewdly to play on his country's long distaste for foreign influence, and that his comments reflect a personal supersensitivity to slights against Afghanistan sovereignty. But you do wonder how he can be so erratic as to say that the Taliban are serving American interests while saying in the same speech that America is, quote, a friend and strategic ally of Afghanistan. Karzai is a mystery that we've had to deal with for a long time and will have to continue to deal with. However complex his motivations, the effects are the same. Karzai's remarks endanger U.S. and coalition troops by encouraging the Taliban to take advantage of the apparent disarray they might see among those fighting against them. Karzai's absurd remarks weaken the support of the American people to pursue a strategy based on a carefully planned transfer of responsibility to Afghan security forces, and they raise doubts in many, if not most, American minds about the wisdom of a long-term strategic relationship with Afghanistan with all of its costs and its risks. Should these challenges, including Karzai's inflammatory rhetoric, cause us to change course? Now, I was disappointed when President Obama, instead of deciding to reduce troops during 2013 at a, quote, steady pace, as he said he would, and as I had urged him to do, the president effectively decided against further troop reductions until the end of this year.
Recently that you may have been referring to, I don't know, but it goes beyond your call for a steady pace, to resume this steady pace of withdrawal, and it was by the former head of this esteemed organization, Leslie Gelb, who posted a op-ed piece saying basically, the headline said, "To hell with Karzai," and that was after the.
He's more succinct than I am.
He is. But what he said, I'll just read a sentence or two. He said, Hamid Karzai is beating up on the United States to score domestic political points once again, this time on the occasion of Chuck Hagel's maiden visit as defense secretary to that sad country. Yet the Obama team and America's foreign policy cognoscenti can't seem to draw the obvious conclusions. Stop letting these Karzai guys play us for suckers and speed up our exit and stop wasting American lives and dollars. So that's not very diplomatic, but it comes from the former head here. And it's probably what, as you probably know, is what a fair number of people think. Is that the right prescription? In other words, he's going beyond something that you're talking about.
It's pretty close except for some of the rhetoric, because I don't think we're wasting lives and dollars there. I think we've had a mission. That mission was to remove the Taliban from control of Afghanistan. And it was to try to provide the Afghan security forces with the numbers and the capabilities, the skills that they need to prevent the Taliban from taking control again. That mission is, for the most part, successful militarily. The part which will help to sustain it, which is to have a government in Afghanistan which is less corrupt, has not been as successful. But it's nonetheless, I think, going to leave Afghanistan, and we're not going to totally leave it, in a better condition than we found it, and in a better place, I believe, to not just make sure that the Taliban can't control them again, but I think that is so clearly in our interest that I just wouldn't go as far as Mr. Gelb does there with his comments about wasted lives and money. I just don't think it's been a waste of time. I think it was an important mission, and that it will be successful to a large degree, not perfectly, but to a large degree.
I think you need to hook your microphone up a bit. So. While they're doing it, we don't have as much time as usual today for questioning, so.
But I just want to know, because of the lack of an answer to my first question, if there's nobody in charge of selling it, nobody's going to buy it.
Well, I would say that we've made a consistent case as an administration. The president did so again last week when he gave his big Middle East speech of emphasizing the importance of the long-term strategic partnership with Iraq, and that it's especially important in light of all the events with the Arab Spring. So Iraq's been so important to our national interest for 20 years that we've either been at war against Iraq or in Iraq for 20 years. So clearly we've made an investment.
What about a financial partnership? You're talking about billions of dollars in supporting a partner that's richer than we are in many ways. Not really, but they seem to have some bucks. And they're going into financial partnerships with other people, which means they're cheating on us.
Representative Ackerman, we have no intention of leaving Iraq. I think it was pretty clear in our opening statements, all three of us, and in fact we've asked for assistance.
The American people think we've left. They think we've made the political decision that we've... Here's the problem. You have no intention of leaving, and everybody else in the country, except those who are really finely tuned, which is a very limited audience, thinks we've already done that. And I would suggest that's a disaster of a short and intermediate term problem. Because it ain't going to be just Iraq that's on the plate in this situation. And somebody in the administration really has to start thinking about that long term, even if long term only means 5 to 7 years, how do you sell $1 billion program to people who think that they're done with the payments?
Representative Ackerman, if I may, Deputy Secretary Nides will be chairing a roundtable discussion on Friday with approximately 30 presidents and CEOs of major U.S. companies to talk about the challenges and the opportunities of investing in Iraq. He will also be meeting, having a number of press interviews along with Ambassador Jeffrey to be making the case that Iraq is worth all of the effort and worth the long-term commitment that we've made. Thank you.
Those people might have a financial incentive to invest in Iraq because it might be good for their 30 or whatever companies. But the American people don't necessarily own that portfolio and aren't going to see it that way. If I could put on my public relations hat and try to understand where the American people are going to be coming from. And I'll just say it again. If you ain't got no one to sell it, you ain't got no one going to buy it. I taught English better than that.